This is Paddington Old Cemetery in North London. As we come in the main entrance, there's a very large memorial here to James Henry Goats. This is on one side of the memorial. Cecil Frederick Biles Hall, Chief Motor Mechanic, HM Motor Launch 205, died 1919 on active service. Just on the right hand side of the main entrance is the Garden of Remembrance. Dedicated to the men of Paddington who gave their lives in the First World War, the Great War. Just a row of names taken at random. There's F.G. Bragg, H. Proudfoot, C.F. Sutton, A.G. Dean, Royal Engineers, A.E. Young, Gloucestershire Regiment, J. Taylor, Scots Guards, W.K. Tidy, Able Seaman, and W. Thorne of the Royal Defence Corps. Further back we have Toomey of the 4th Battalion London Regiment. We've got Hostler of the Royal Garrison Artillery, C. Myers of the Labour Corps, O.C. Gallop, Army Pay Corps, C. Knott, Oxford and Bucks Light Infantry. Such a wide range of regiments and battalions listed here. And next to it is a further war memorial. Again, this is the Great War, and it lists names of people who gave their lives. Just show you the names on it. One here, larger than many. This is to John Ring, MD, Doctor of Kilburn, who died in 1896. We are in North London, and you will hear aeroplanes passing overhead regularly. Immediately behind that memorial is a war grave to Private L.A. Howell, the 3rd County of London Yeomanry, 1914, aged 19. Alongside the path are a number of these larger tombs. One here reads Cordelia, the wife of W.F. Cleveland, MD, Doctor of Maida Vale. Got a maiden here holding a posy in a little bit of an unusual pose, leaning forward. And the memorial is to Emma, the wife of Charles Baker. She died in 1901. Next to all the older memorials, they seem to have filled in recently with a long line here of new graves, almost as if they've put the graves on what was originally a path, possibly, all in a line. This one has the kneeling angel, looking quite sorrowful, and the monument is to Kate Mary Lena, wife of Herbert Lydiard. This angel has a much more striking pose. In her left hand she has the scroll, and the memorial is to Margaret Florence Miller, known as Peggy, 1919. On the right hand side, 2 large tombs, mausoleums. The second one has some very elaborate carvings above the door, but neither of these tombs have names on them. This is a separate area, fenced off with these metal railings. Contains a number of graves, all exactly the same. And in the centre we have this big cross, and it tells us on the bottom, "Sisters of the Church, rest in peace." Here, like we saw before, we have the old graves in the background and just a long line of new graves in front. Looks a little strange, to be honest. Amongst the older graves we have some war memorials. H.J. Taylor, Queen Victoria's Rifles, 1916, age 42. And here is to Lance Corporal F.E. Cooper, the 86th Training Reserve Battalion, who died 1918, age 19. And over here again we have this odd habit of filling in the space with new graves in a straight line. And a little angel on this one. There's a spaniel in the background who's playing. And this one is to Therese Barbara Mutton, who was 3.5 when she died. This large one standing by itself in the graveyard, and it's simply dedicated to the sisters community of St. Peter. This one is dedicated to Reginald George, our darling Babsy, the dearly loved child of George and Florence Harris, and looks to be about 4 years old. Unfortunately, the statue here has been beheaded over the years. We stood there for 120 plus years. Got the angel here, and dedicated to Mary, the wife of George Tomlinson. One here behind the railings to Sir George Nichols, 1781, 1865. This one here is determined to be the tallest memorial in the graveyard. On the base we find Thomas William Bowlby, 1818 to 1860, died while acting as war correspondent to the Times in China, and he's buried at Pekin, and his wife presumably is buried here, Frances Marion. A modern grave here for Kenneth Walsh, right beside one of the main piles, and it commands us on the end here to kneel and pray. Although I can't see a name on this particular elaborate tomb, I've just been told by one of the members of the Friends of this cemetery that the chap in here was the leader of the 11th Hussars in the charge of the Light Brigade. His wife left him for one of his junior officers and went to live in Canada, but his career prospered. A lovely little statue here of a young girl, and on the memorial below we read that it's Ivy Margaret, who died after a few hours' illness, aged 8 years. Now if we go round to the back of her head, you can see the way they've done the ringlets, the curls. As an aeroplane passes over, this one is to Colonel Horace Montague, son of the Reverend Horatio Montague, and he was late of the 8th King's Royal Irish Hussars and of the 11th Prince Albert's own Hussars. Charles Hine died 1863, and his widow Louisa Hole Hine. One here to Mary Ann, the dearly beloved wife of Thomas Thornby, FSA. Now you can see an example of where the monumental mason has got the spelling of the name completely wrong. At the end there, the E and the Y are overlapping each other. It looks as though he missed out the E and went straight to the Y and then tried to squeeze the E back in. Such a shame. This is a very large slab of stone. It must have been very expensive. And he goes and makes a spelling mistake. Another one of these buildings, sort of mausoleum tombs. The name above the door is Strood, but the door is now a sheet of corrugated metal, and alongside it we have this litter bin, inappropriately positioned. One who's gone out of area here, Caroline Theophilia Ponsonby and Captain Charles Ponsonby, and their son Stuart Gordon Ponsonby, who was prebendary and Chancellor of Exeter Cathedral. And beneath that we see Basil Leofric Ponsonby, their youngest son, who was lost at sea. This one with the broken column indicating a life cut short, and beneath it we have this greatly sorrowing woman with her head in her hand, and we read it's to Thomas Cooper Esquire, who died aged 50. This reads John Fraser McQueen, HM Council, Benches of Lincoln's Inn, DL and JP for Inverness-shire. A distinctive design with inscriptions on all four sides of the lower tomb and on the roof also. The name on this side is John George of Cardigan Lodge at St John's Wood. Another of these mausoleums. Again, the door has been sealed up with corrugated iron. I assume they've been prone to vandalism. The plaque on this one, it does tell us a little bit. Augustus Percival Calland, Percy, 1815 to 1901. And we've got his wife there. And over on the other side here, we've got darling little Gladys. And I can't quite see the dates on that one, but obviously a child. Some of the larger ones here beside the main pathway leading from the gate. This one stands out because we have a likeness of the gentleman on top here. And when we scan down the inscription, it tells us that it's Jabez Burns, DD LLD, in grateful memory of his remarkable energy and usefulness as a preacher, author, philanthropist and temperance reformer, and the beloved minister of upwards of 40 years of Church Street General Baptist Chapel, Edgware Road. There he is, Jabez Burns. This one has a image of Our Lady in rather dated costume, and I see on the inscription down here, Edward Spencer Beasley, Professor of History at the University College London. That clearly isn't him, that must be his wife up there. A lovely picture. The angel on top of this memorial, and then we come down to the inscription which reads Memory of my devoted wife Daisy Florence Clark. And we've got a good likeness of Daisy Florence Clark here, aged 37 years. There's an area here with a lot of stones, very small in size, perhaps only a foot or 18 inches tall. and they all seem to be dated around the 1925, 26, 27, 28 period. So whether there was a particular drive at that time to have small stones, I'm not sure. But they're not all the same date, they span several years. Further into the graveyard is a section for the new graves, those that aren't mixed in with the old ones. One of the best known graves here in Old Paddington Cemetery is Michael Bond. Michael Bond wrote the Paddington Bear books, so very appropriate that he should be buried here in Paddington Cemetery. Michael Bond, 1926 to 2017, and on the top here you'll see people have put some little figures of Paddington Bear. So there we are, Michael Bond. Well, that's my visit to Old Paddington Cemetery here in North London. Fascinating, a lot of interesting graves, and talking to the friends of the cemetery, there are a lot more famous people here that I didn't find, but you could seek them out. Apparently they have a website, Friends of Old Paddington Cemetery, so if you're coming here, it'd be worth looking that out. Till the next time.